Yeah, in fact, many places in the Philippines that we visited, they had never seen surfing, and they used to tap on the surfboard because they would see a fin, they would call it bating.
Nothing. Yeah.
Bating. Or I'm Steven Scott. I'm a surfer who used to surf in the Philippines back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I lived there continuously from 1972 to 1974. That's when I did most of my exploring around. 1980, 84, 1989, it was 92 or 94, somewhere in there. And then I stopped going for a while because I started surfing other places. I originally got there via my father. My father worked for the Department of the Navy, and he was assigned to QB Point, Civic Naval Base up in Longpo, Zambales. I really didn't have a choice since that was his job. Our whole family moved there. Yeah, I think I was 15. That was an interesting time. That was interesting because that was right before they declared martial law. I had already started surfing in California. When the people came to box up all our stuff to move it to the Philippines, I could only take one surfboard. The only surfboard I had was like a 610 single fin. That was my first board in the Philippines. Unfortunately, I broke it in half in the first 6 months. And back then it was very difficult to get materials to repair a surfboard. Yeah, in fact, many places in the Philippines that we visited, they had never seen surfing. And they used to tap on the surfboard because they would see a fin, they would call it bating.
Nothing. Yeah.
Bating, or they call it an airplane wing. There was a program for high school students called Work Study. You went to different organizations or departments on the base, and you would have a job. You actually got paid. You got paid minimum wage. Whatever it was back then, I think it was like 75 cents or $1. I forget. So my first job was working fiberglass repairs.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect. The river patrol boats that they were sending back that were damaged during the Vietnam War, they would send them to Subic from Vietnam, and they would unload them there, and it was called Ship Repair Facility. They would repair the boats there and send them back. So my job was sanding fiberglass hulls. They were made out of fiberglass and plywood. We were lucky because the other surfers who lived at Subic, they didn't have access to boards either. All the boards were old or beat up. It was hard to get boards over there. So you had to have a project. That was one of the things. So what we ended up doing, my project, is I created a mold for pouring foam, surfboard foam. because when they repaired the boats, the foam that they used for repairing boats was the same 2-part mixed foam that they make for surfboard blanks. Okay. But what we didn't have was the high pressure, screwed down, pre-shaped mold. So we just made it square. It was like a 6-inch block by 24 inches wide. And we made 2 of them. One was 7 foot long and the other one was 8 foot long. That way we can make different size boards on those 2. The guys who worked at the shop and the foreman, they had never seen this done either. Okay, so it was new to them too. Polyurethane foam, when you do a 2-part mix, you pour it into anything, it's very sticky. The outside shell is sticky and it will stick to anything. So we had to figure out a way to keep it from sticking on the inside of the mold. They wanted to use grease. I think first it was WD-40 or something like that. Okay, some type of spray that had oil in it. It was so stinky our first one. We go, no, we got to find something else. Somebody showed us this spray that came in a can that they use in frying pans. So we ended up using vegetable oil. So we would spray the inside of the mold with that, and then we would go ahead and do our 2-part mix, pour it in the mold, and hurry up and slam it down and spin all the big nuts down so it wouldn't come out. And We had one little weep hole so it wouldn't explode, so like it would kind of
Uh,
ooze out a little bit. And then once it's set, we let it sit in there for like 24 hours, and then we'd pop it out of there. Then we'd take it over to the wood shop right next door. They would have them cut it in half lengthwise, glue in a stringer. What was the only wood that we had back then? Was mahogany and teak. That was the only two woods that you could have available there. I think maybe they had spruce also, but spruce was so stringy it's hard to shape. So we go ahead and have them cut it, glue it together, and then we shape our own blank, shaping our own surfboards there on base. Yeah, and then the other funny thing is that we didn't have access to all the good stuff. So our first, I think our first 4 boards were all solid black. Because the patrol boats that they use in Vietnam, the sides of them were all black. It was so hard to keep wax on the deck because black absorbs heat. Yeah. So even sitting in the water, the sunlight, hit the black, and it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny. But afterwards, we were able to talk them into letting us use the good stuff. So those were the first surfboards that we made, and we just made our own. We took copies, took measurements from other boards that people had. They were kind of like destroyed, but you could still get the measurements, and we did it all that way. Made our own boards. We were first going to try and get to Bal Air, and how I found Bal Air is a good story too. Outside Cabanatuan. Of course, my Tagalog was not very good back then, but from what we understood is that the NPA were active and that they were stopping buses and people from going to Bal Air. Our bus was stopped up in the mountains, up in the Sierra Madre, the mountains. Yeah, we got stopped by the NPA. Yeah. First they came on the bus, and then immediately they recognized that we were American. Then they made everybody get off the bus. We all got off the bus. They were looking in the bus. They took some things, and it was really kind of sketchy. Finally, this one guy comes up, and he goes, "Hey, man, you like rock and roll?" And here's this long-haired NPA guy with a machine gun going, "Hey, you like rock and roll?" And we're like, "Yeah." Stand there with the machine gun. And he's going, "Hey, do you have any cassette tapes?" And we're like, "Yeah." Because, so we ended up giving some cassette tapes, and everything's all cool, and they're like all talking to each other. Like, it was pretty wild, and then, have a good time. Our first trip to Bal Air, man, it was a scene. It was a scene. We got off the bus, and it was like touching our hair and like tapping on the surfboard. And since I had long blonde curly hair back then, all these old ladies were always coming up and touching it. And I asked my friend, "Why are they always touching my hair?" And he goes, "It's good luck, man. It's good luck." And the chief of police came, some Irish priest came, and then the mayor came, and they're all like, there was no Tagalog phrase book back then. There's no Tagalog English dictionary. So we had a bunch of, like little cards. Our maids, spoke pretty good English. And we would have all these phrases like which way to, how much for this. So we had all these little phrase cards, that we would communicate with. This Irish priest was the go-between the chief of police and the mayor and these other people they're just questioning us. Why are you here? What are you doing here? And, we're just here to go surfing. And this is not Hawaii. There's no surfing here. Let us make our decision about that, And then it was in the evening time. They're starting to drink their ginebra and what's that, rum? Yeah, maybe it was. The priest came walking by, and he just shook his head and he goes, "You guys are trouble. You guys are trouble." There was nothing on the beach. Sabang Beach, there was nothing. One little restaurant and one little place, they called it a little disco hall where they party at, and then there was like maybe 3 or 4 nipa huts, and then it was just nothing. As far as you could see, it was just beach and just palm trees, nothing. In fact, the first surfboard that I gave, I didn't give it to Raul. I left it in Balair when I left, thinking I was going to come back and put it in that one nipa hut. There was one guy who lived there, and a typhoon came through, messed up the nipa hut, and he rebuilt it right next to his old beat-up one. He just left a surfboard in the shade right there. One day, Raul went walking by there going, I recognize that board. I recognize that board from those guys who were here surfing. He kind of became owner of it. Yeah, and that was the board that was shared by all the kids, anywhere from like 8 to 10 years old, and they would all share that board. And then when I went back in 1984, I guess they had started, some of the kids had started surfing. And he's the one who should get the credit for being the first surfer, without a doubt. And I have other friends who will attest to that. In fact, I've got a picture of Raul surfing Cementos in 1976. Hey, you want to see the picture?
Yeah, I want to see that.
And there's Raul at Cementos.
Wow.
There's Charlie Point. I could tell you about Apocalypse Now. That's a whole different story, but we were the ones that showed them where Balair was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I never got any credits in the movie. I guess they didn't want to give some teenage kids credit, They started somewhere on the West Coast. Just, I don't know exactly where, but it wasn't La Union. It wasn't San Antonio. It was somewhere further south. And I guess bad weather or no surf, they couldn't get any surf scenes in. And then they went over on the East Coast. I think it was somewhere south of Pataduanas, or was that area south of Legazpi, when you go out on the coast, Gubat. Maybe it was Gubat. Anyway, both the West Coast and East Coast, they had a hard time with typhoon weather or no surf. And so I got a phone call from my friends in Manila one day, and they go, hey, these guys are making a movie, and they want to know, because we'd already sworn to secrecy back then. We're not going to tell anybody about Balair, because the Cementos, the Cementos was like our secret spot. And so I go, I don't know about this, And anyway, got talked into going down south to Manila and meeting some of the movie people in a restaurant bar. And I know where there's a place. So it's kind of funny when we actually got them there. There was actually a good swell. Okay. They go, okay, well, where's the surf? And I go, out there. And I go, how are we going to get over there? Actually, back then, the river mouth of Balair, it was different, where they're making the bridge, because there was no bridge back then. Okay. You had to go way, way to the west, inland, to go on one little bridge to go across. And it was actually easier back then. They had those big, giant, like little rafts, and the little push rafts with a stick. They would take them across right there. Okay. And then go past Secrets. Okay. You go past Secrets and go to Cementos. But the easiest way was just to get a boat from there, a banca boat from there. And we would just go up to Cementos that way and would surf there then. So we took them up there and showed them to them, and they were going, holy cow. Isn't there somewhere that's got a sand bottom? I'm like, yeah, back there at the river mouth. And they go, well, what about that little river mouth point you were talking about? I go, oh, you mean way over there? And we had given that thing a name. Filipinos back there had a name for that spot, for the river up going north. And then we took them up there, and it's like half the size, and it's just just little playful peaks. And they go, oh yeah, this is great, this is what we want. I'm like, okay, all right. So we left them be there, and we went back up to Cementos, and we couldn't understand why they wouldn't surf Charlie's Point instead of Cementos. But I guess the people that they had for surfing ability.
Uh,
For surfing longboards,
Yeah.
cementos was not really their ball of wax. Plus, I guess it would have been a lot harder to shoot up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, do the footage. It was a whole lot easier up there by the river mouth. So yeah. So, yeah, no credits.
No credit.
No credits. The Hucks and the MPA. Once martial law came into effect, traveling around the Philippines was restricted in some areas because the Philippine Army would control areas and they wouldn't let you pass. Within a year, we got invited to a party. My friends, whose father worked for the embassy, we met one of these generals. He started, asking about our travels in the Philippines, and we go, yeah, we love the Philippines. We love, we're like trying to find places to surf, to bring surf. We were saying, yeah, we're going to bring surfing to the Filipino people, which they weren't going to go in the water back then. No Filipinos were going to go in the water. Really. This general gave all four of us his business card. He wrote his personal phone number, and he goes, this is your card. They stop you and they won't let you go somewhere. You just show them this card, tell them to call me. And that was our key. And from there on out, any checkpoint, they tell you, no, we just show them the card and explain, and it's like a VIP card. So yeah, that's when, after we got the card, then we were able to go province anytime we wanted. We were able to go to Samar. We were able to go to Siargao, anytime. Because actually one one guy actually called because he didn't believe it. I'm sure the guy thought we made the card, and just made it all up. It was like bullshit. He got in trouble for that. So yeah, it was kind of spooky back then because everybody, no matter where you went out in the province, everybody had the big long bolos. And once you got way out there in the middle of nowhere, some people carrying around rifles, and they had handguns too. So, and we didn't have any weapons. So, it's like we're kind of at the mercy of everybody. Actually, we were more, what we were most afraid of in the Philippines? Snakes. Poisonous snake. Yeah, because a lot of places that we went to go search for and explore, you're cutting in and out of the jungle. And in the jungle, there's snakes everywhere. Even the grassy fields, we cut across. You'd see cobras or vipers. Like, oh god. And then sea snakes and sharks, tiger sharks. They're everywhere. So yeah, that was our biggest fear. Not the NPA, but I mean, maybe we were just lucky, but and I was too young and stupid to know how close we came to having a big problem. Just came back from a couple of places. Because see, back then there was no surf forecast. The only way that we knew that there was a swell coming, I made friends with this Navy guy who was the weather forecaster for the U.S. Navy pilots. He worked at the weather facility there. That's back when they just had the big charts, and he would have to determine how strong the winds were going to be, what direction, how big the open swells and stuff like that. It was pretty primitive back then. We were able to get our hands on from base. Hey, we need some charts of this area. What can you do for us? So just with a plain old road map, a Philippine road map, and a nautical chart, and just a guess of when we might catch something. That's how we got to places. That's how we went around. And sometimes it was good, and sometimes it was just dead flat, But you'd always check it out. So, and understand that getting around back then was really primitive compared to what you got today. I mean, the first buses, trains, and planes that we got around in the Philippines, it's like people wouldn't even get on them nowadays. it was sketchy getting around. Back then, we also had access to our motorcycles. We could cover a lot of territory on a recon mission, check it all out, and then go back there later. So a lot of times, these little recon missions, the only thing we do is bring our swim fins. We take one of those and some goggles to check out the reef, and we take off and hit the road. Buses were like, dude, the buses you got now are insane. They get from Manila to a party in what, 8 hours? And it would take 3 days. 3 days back then. Yes. Even if you went up the coast from Subic all the way to a party and all the way back, you're talking 3 days. They had Philippine Rabbit and Victory Liner back then, and Pantranco, and a couple of others. And all the time. Out there in the province, those roads are still skinny. Okay, but back then they're even skinnier. And you would always hear these stories that in the news, on the newspapers, 2 buses just colliding head on, playing chicken, like who's gonna give me a room? They're flying. It was spooky back then, riding the bus, man. It was spooky, and the ferries were even worse. In fact, we rode a train from Manila down towards Dayet. I guess that train's not even around anymore. That was cool, man. That was cool. I dug that part. Right? Yeah, so understand, getting around the Philippines, it was a logistical nightmare. Unless you knew somebody rich who had a helicopter. Back in the 70s, that was the only time that we ever saw a foreign surfer. It's in 1970, the end of 1974. We had to make a bus transfer to a different bus. We were going up these flight of steps, and my friend goes, "Hey man, that guy has a surfboard." And we all look across and go, "Where?" Because we had never seen any traveling surfer. The only surfers that we ever met back then were military personnel. So to see this long-haired blonde surfer carrying a surfboard across town square was kind of a big shock to us. So we flagged him over, and he turned out being Australian. We made small talk and stuff like that. And he goes, "Where are you going?" We're going south. And I go, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Oh, I'm going north." And it was kind of one of those awkward moments, because even back then it's like, we're not going to tell you exactly where to go unless you got something to share, Okay, so it finally came down to, where should I go up north? And we go, well, do you want to go to the Pacific side, or you want to go to the South China Sea side? And then, he goes, oh, might as well do both. The Australian guy actually wanted to buy our nautical charts. I'm like, nah, I don't think so. So finally he goes, okay, well, where should I go? And I go, well, where are we gonna go? It's like, we told him Baler or La Union, okay, which now today is the 2 epicenters up north. Baler and La Union. He didn't say Siargao. He said, I think Dapa. That was where he told us to go. He didn't say Siargao Island. He gave us the name of the town. It wasn't Boyum.
It wasn't?
It wasn't Boyum. The guy who died there, Australian guy. It wasn't him.
He's not the first.
You know who I think the first was?
What? Who?
That guy we met on the road in that town on the bus. That was 1974.
Maybe
and
that
was Australian. I think that is him, because we asked him, is there any surfers down there? He goes, dude, I'm the only guy. That was the only time I saw him. That was it.
After you bumped with the Australian, would you say that you guys were the first surfers in the Philippines?
No, because prior to me moving there, I'm gonna say that, how the Australians are. They want to claim they're first at everything, But I'm gonna have to say, American military personnel, or American dependents of military personnel, or American Australian business interests in Manila were the first surfers. Okay. And we knew that we were the first surfers in almost all the places we went. We were the first ones they had ever seen. So yeah, there was like a group of 10 of us, 10 to 12 of us that were really active about traveling all around. And every weekend or every other weekend, point at a spot on the map, like how's the weather and the swell going to be? Let's try this spot. So thank you for the acknowledgement. But back then it was a rush. Back then it was like stumbling upon something that that someone would chew their hand off to go surf down. It's like we were just like any curious kids. We always, what's around the next corner? What's over what's up in the next bay? And just remember, it's I'm just part of a group of kids that wanted to surf, and we all had that wanderlust. We wanted to. You're living in a nation that's got 7,000 islands. Okay, you got the Pacific Ocean on one side, and on the other side, you got one of the most stormiest seas in the world. All right, there's gotta be surf here. There's gotta be. And when you're lucky enough to catch it when there's actually a swell, you're rewarded with some very, very good waves, and you're in the right place at the right time. So yeah, being part of that crew, going out there and trailblazing and doing stuff back then, a lot of people will say, he's full of shit, he didn't do all that. I really don't care. Like there's other people say, no, we beat you. I go, fuck, okay, whatever you say, I don't care. I got nothing to prove. I got pictures and memories to back it up. So yeah, that's the thing about those old pictures. They got the dates on the back of them. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, this is like, oh yeah, here it is, 1976, pal. 1974. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get the red carpet treatment when
for sure.
Surf time, but I think what has happened in the Philippines for surfing is great. It's like it finally filtered in, it finally trickled down. It's like more and more people going there to travel and surf, and over the years, I've reluctantly told a couple of famous people that there's surf there. Just go in this area, and I'm not going to tell you exactly where to go, but got your nautical chart and just go in this area, you'll find something. So yeah, thank you.